joined by a couple of my colleagues from the Active PDF side of things. So in addition to myself, we brought on Mike and Tim. Mike, would you care to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, I'm Mike Cadell, Director of Customer Experience at Active PDF.
Yeah, hey, hi guys. My name is Tim Pham. I'm a Director of Engineering here at Active PDF.
Great, thanks so much, guys. Thanks for joining us here today. And yeah, so what we'll be doing is kind of discussing how PDF Tron's technologies kind of complement the offerings from Active PDF, and how that all fits into kind of the larger framework of the .NET roadmap. And so, you know, the big theme here today is really that we're talking about the same premium PDF tools, both from the Active PDF side and the PDF Tron side, and really, you know, with this new partnership, the big advantage to you know, users of those two toolkits is the expanded features, the expanded options, and just some of the different possibilities that are available. And so that's what you know, we're kind of going to go into some details on here today in this presentation. So the agenda is, you know, first we'll kind of talk about, from a high level, Active PDF, and the offerings from Active PDF, and some of the advantages of using that technology stack, and also PDF Tron, you know, how our technology stack is laid out, and some of the features and benefits that we bring from that. Sort of with some attention to Active PDF users and people already relying on the technology, we want to emphasize that, you know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So, you know, Mike will kind of go into, you know, a bit of that on, you know, if there's technology that's already working currently, that there might not need to be much need to destabilize that. Then Tim is going to go a bit into the .NET framework, both a bit of its you know, current roadmap, sort of where it's going and where it's at now, and how you know, our technology kind of fits into that. And then I'll be going into some of the details about serverless architectures, some of the benefits there, and some of the benefits also of a purely client-side implementation, which is possible using PDF Tron's technologies. And after that, we'll have a lot of time for Q&A as well. So, you know, feel free to post any questions or you know, anything you'd like more information about into the chat or questions here in the webinar software. And what we're going to do is actually kind of save those up to the end and have kind of a Q&A session with myself, Mike, and Tim. And that way, kind of, you know, go through any questions that you might have already, or, you know, that might come up during the presentation. So please feel free to share those. So just you know, a bit of a background about Active PDF and PDF Tron in terms of our technology stacks from a high level. So Active PDF you know, offers C# SDKs that are really oriented for, you know, performance and a real solid reliability and overall ease of use. You know, just very easy to use SDKs with you know, APIs that developers find very intuitive. It's geared really towards high volume document conversions, you know, so the kinds of conversions that would be relied on by enterprise level applications. They're built on top of .NET and also COM as well, with COM bindings. So that way, you know, they can be very easily integrated into existing backend applications. And they've been really proven in the field too. So you know, it's been responsible for millions of downloaded PDF files, you know, day in, day out across the globe. PDF Tron is very similar in some ways. So we also have C# SDKs as well as other platforms. We're able to offer a fully customizable UI with our toolkits. So, you know, often we'll include the source code to our UI implementations, and we're also able to enable client-side processing without requiring a server-side component. So, you know, without having to install anything server-side, you can still deploy some of this functionality within your solution, and we'll go into that a bit when we get into the client-side details. So we have comprehensive cross-platform SDKs. So, you know, not just for say Windows, but also Linux, Mac OS, as well as mobile platforms like iOS and Android, and the web as well, which we'll go into a bit. we support quite a variety of programming languages as well. So, in addition to .NET-based languages like C# or VB.NET, we also support C and C++, which ActivePDF does as well through COM APIs. We also have bindings for other languages like JavaScript, Objective-C, Java, Python, PHP, Ruby. Really, the major languages that we hear about in use from our customers. And as a result, we're at the core of a lot of next generation software applications and workflows. So I think I'm going to hand things over to Mike now, who's going to go into a bit about how if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Thanks, Aaron. And a big hello to all my ActivePDF friends and customers. Over the last decade or so, I've had the pleasure of working with many of you on your ActivePDF deployments, and I'm so glad that you took the time to join us today for this webinar. So as you're now aware, in June of last year, after 20 years in business, ActivePDF joined the PDF Tron family. Now, this partnership highlights and promotes the strengths between our two companies. With ActivePDF's high-volume document automation and PDF Tron's client-side technology and document SDKs, we are creating an end-to-end document technology platform to expedite the way the world works with documents. Now, ActivePDF would not have made it this far without you, and we extend a special thanks to all of our users who have supported and advised us along the way, helping us to build better software. Now, your satisfaction is still our #1 priority, and we look forward to continuing a great relationship with you. ActivePDF will still provide the same great products, support, and service that you have come to expect, but now with a larger range of resources available to you. So if what you have running now is working, then it ain't broke and there's no need to fix it. Thank you for your continued support. And at this time, I'll hand it back over to Tim and Aaron to discuss the future of .NET and exploring serverless infrastructure.
Great, thanks, Mike. So yeah, just hand things over to Tim, who will talk now about the .NET framework.
Great, thanks, Aaron. Thanks, Mike. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Today I'm just going to share with you a few slides about .NET and talk a bit about ActivePDF products towards the end. So .NET Framework was first released back in 2002. Did most of the heavy lifting for the developers, so that way they can just focus on writing applications. Developers can leverage .NET class libraries to perform low-level functionality, such as like network communication, system I/O, and database access. So it made it really easy to write great UI desktop applications as well as robust web apps using ASP.NET. The latest and final .NET version is actually 4.8. Microsoft will no longer release new versions of the .NET Framework, but will still support it in the future as far as doing like service packs. So what is .NET Core? Well, in 2016, Microsoft released .NET Core, like a successor to .NET Framework. Some key benefits and differences are that .NET Core is free and open source. It is cross-platform, meaning that you can develop and deploy on Windows, Linux, and Mac OS. There's also a huge performance improvement over .NET Framework. And then the current version and most likely final version of .NET Core is 3.1. As you can see here, .NET Core is definitely gaining traction, especially on the Linux OS. So what is .NET 5? Well, Microsoft is moving towards one .NET. So in the future, it would just be .NET with a version number like .NET 5. Currently, .NET 5 combines the best of .NET Framework, .NET Core, and Xamarin into a single unified platform. If you don't know, Xamarin is a framework to develop mobile applications for iOS and Android. So ultimately, the goal of .NET is to make it even easier for developers to write applications that can be deployed pretty much anywhere. So the question is, should you migrate to .NET Core and or .NET 5? Well, it just really depends on your business and technology requirements. But the recommendation is to migrate to .NET Core 3.1. And if you're doing new development, start with .NET 5. I encourage you to just check out Microsoft tools and documentations on their website to help you make with this decision. Okay, while I have your attention here, we are working on your toolkit. It will merge with Tron's core engine underneath the hood. But not to worry, the public interface will be the same, meaning that upgrading to this version should be seamless and backwards compatible. However, the immediate benefit is performance. But it also sets the stage to include Tron functionality that's currently not available in Toolkit today, like PDF-A, conversion options like Word to PDF, and much more. This Toolkit version is going to be released, tentatively scheduled in March this year, so pretty much next month. You can reach out to Mike Cadell or the support team for more information on that. As far as .NET and Active PDF products, so there are no immediate plans to go cross-platform, which means Active PDF will stay on the .NET framework, but we'll evaluate as requirements changes. The good news is that Active PDF.NET assemblies will work on applications that's targeted to .NET framework, .NET Core, and .NET 5, but only on the Windows OS. But our team is ready and developed to support Active PDF customers with any migration challenges. So the future of .NET is promising and exciting. Our parent company, Tron, is ahead of the game. They actually offer .NET Core PDF solutions now on .NET Core, so it's truly cross-platform, and so you can do development and deployment on it. Additionally, Tron solution offers serverless deployment and client-side processing, which at this time I will turn over to Aaron to provide you more information on this. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. So what I'm going to be doing now is kind of digging into how we can go about creating a serverless architecture, using PDF-Tron's technology, and just some of the advantage of serverless technologies in general. So just a bit of a background about that. The idea behind serverless infrastructure is that the need for managing machines is kind of hidden, and instead you simply run code in somebody else's privately managed servers. So those are called quote-unquote serverless solutions. And those are often easier to scale and more cost-effective compared to the alternatives of launching your own machine, since you're really only charged when your code is run. And then additionally, due to serverless support for native languages, you can often just copy your previously created code to the new environment, which makes migration a lot easier. So there are some different variables to consider when looking at serverless architectures. So we'll kind of dig in a bit here into cost, language support, security, and then just some limitations that might be useful to consider. So regarding cost, because we're talking about simply running a program within somebody else's environment rather than provisioning a new machine or virtual machine environment to run on, that means that the overall cost is typically a lot less, because you're not allocating resources to keep an entire environment running when you don't need it, and rather it's just sort of an on-demand pricing model. So that typically can result in quite lower costs for server-side processing. Additionally, while language support was initially a bit problematic with serverless architectures, where you might need to be tied into a particular language or locked into how a serverless provider wants to do things, nowadays those language options have really opened up quite a lot. So for example, AWS Lambda has native support for Java, Go, PowerShell, Node.js, C#, Ruby and Python. So that way, you have a wide hiring pool to leverage, and there's quite a lot of existing knowledge that can be brought to the task at hand. Additionally, security is a lot easier to manage in serverless environments as well. So if you're working with your own hardware on premise, or if you're running a virtual machine in some cloud environment, then you are responsible for constantly updating the packages. So keeping the software installed in that environment up to date. And if there are any security vulnerabilities, to go ahead and patch those, yourself. So it's a lot of work placed on the administrator, the person provisioning this environment, to keep up with the security patches that would be relevant to this environment or to whatever stack you're using. And that sort of added overhead can really add up. And then going in and administering each of these machines and making sure that everything is up on the latest version, that can add up to quite a bit of work for an IT staff. But with serverless approaches, that is the concern of the provider, not of the person running the code. So that is sort of taken off of your shoulders. And that said, though, there are some limitations with this approach. So, for example, on AWS, there's specifically a limit of 50 megabytes for deployed code, and then the temp directory is limited to half a gigabyte. If you're just doing things like merging several PDF documents together, that should be fine for most cases. But that limitation is there, and something to be aware of. Another limitation is kind of the time it takes to spin up a function, especially if it hasn't been in use for a while. This is sometimes called the cold start problem. But that said, it shouldn't be a showstopper if say like tasks are happening asynchronously and users are provided timely updates or some sort of feedback about the status of what's happening on the back end. That's a pretty manageable problem. So as a result, it's kind of a new, way of approaching the back end, and it's something that can really add a lot of value to an existing setup. And then sort of going the next step from that is something that PDF-Tron is able to offer, and that's going purely client-side. So, sort of a true serverless kind of model. So not even, running your own code inside of a Lambda function or something like that. Rather, what we're doing is just saying we're not going to use any sort of server-side processing, to perform this PDF or other document manipulation and processing. And PDF-Tron is able to do that cross-platform. So of course we have native toolkits, that let you view and manipulate documents, in a client-side application. But we also can offer that same functionality in browser. So if you're deploying a web solution, you can keep all of the PDF rendering and processing and even many of the conversions here inside of the browser itself, without relying on any sort of server-side component to do the PDF processing part of that. And we were able to do that by taking our code base and compiling it over to JavaScript so that we can run inside of the browser and perform all the processing there. And we found that to have quite a few advantages for a lot of our customers' use cases. So one of the big ones is less infrastructure, right? The very fact that you're not running a server means now that you're not running a server. So, that means you don't need to involve an IT department to provision a new server or allocate resources to get one spun up at a cloud provider. That sort of internal wrangling to get those resources, in an organization wouldn't need to happen since everything is just running client side. So it's sort of much easier to implement inside of an organization often. And additionally, since you're not having to run a server, you don't have to manage that server deployment. If there's an administrator on your side, they're no longer tasked with that. So you're no longer taking up their time with this, no longer spending the money on buying that server or provisioning it from a cloud provider, and no maintenance either for the server. So no upgrades or worries about security or audits of the vulnerability of this extra system running in your environment. If everything you're doing is entirely client side, then all of that just sort of naturally goes away. So that's less to deal with, and of course that results in spending less money as well. So that comes up with the server costs themselves. Since we're not buying servers or provisioning them from a cloud provider, and we're not paying the cost of maintaining those. And essentially, just a purely client-side solution scales very well. It's a kind of natural scalability where, as new users come on board, and those new users are going to need to render more PDF documents or convert more Word documents or do whatever kind of document processing they need. Because that work is happening on their local machines in browser or within a local application, that's a kind of very natural scalability model. Essentially, they're contributing the resources that they will need as they come on board in the system. And also there are big concerns or big advantages there with security. So because we're only working with content in a client-side capacity, so we're not processing documents on a server, that means that the content always stays within that client-side machine. And by virtue of not going out over the network, over to another machine, or just being transmitted at all, now we're talking about kind of locking down sensitive content or confidential content or personally identifying information that could be really damaging to spread around within an organization or within a document processing system. Just the fact that it's all kept client-side means that there's a lot less that needs to be managed and reported and kept track of. And also processing documents purely on the client side means that we can enable end-to-end encryption, which is where whenever the content is in transit, it's encrypted. So, in an end-to-end encrypted solution, if I were, collaborating with another user, that information, would need to always be encrypted and always be unreadable when it's on the server side, and would only be actually readable and processable, on the client side. And so that has big advantages in terms of security. That's something that end users really respond to as a way of enforcing privacy and security rules. So that's something that we're seeing a lot more interest in, and this client side functionality really helps make that possible. So yeah, those are sort of the things that we wanted to kind of talk about today. Just some of the advantages that this new partnership will bring, and sort of the new features and options that are available for people, using these technologies within their solutions. So, whether it's just a pure .NET solution on Windows, or .NET on other platforms, or serverless architectures, or purely client-side deployments, we have a lot of offerings within our toolkit that can help you out. So what we wanted to do at this point, I think, is to go into a bit of a question and answer period. So I think we have some questions that have been posted, but really what we're hoping for is to turn this into kind of a roundtable a little bit, where if you guys, if you have any questions, after this presentation, please feel free to just post them up, and we can all discuss them as a group. But let's see, we've had at least one posted here, so let me just sort of jump into that. So you mentioned multiple languages were supported, but VB.NET was not mentioned. Is it? And I think VB.NET is supported across the board with all of our .NET-based solutions. I know that's the case with PDF Tron's offering, and we actually have code samples written in VB.NET, so that if you're relying on that, you can get started right away. And correct me if I'm wrong, Tim and Mike, but that's the case with active PDF as well, correct?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, great. Another question was, you used AWS to illustrate examples in your presentation. Is Azure equally viable? I know for sure that's the case on the PDF Tron side. So we've had many customers who have used both AWS and Azure, when deploying our technologies. Yeah, we've integrated with them for quite a few years now. So absolutely, that's a viable solution. Let's see. Another question was, I want to retain existing active PDF functionality, but want to run on Linux. What are my options? Tim, would you like to field that one?
Sure. I mean, yeah, I think for now we're like I mentioned earlier, we're having don't have immediate plans to go to do cross-platform as far as active PDF products. But I think that PDF Tron offers a lot of functionality, on that side that can have that can solve your just in PDF solution problems, right? So if you're interested in looking at that, then we can definitely talk to you about that.
Okay, nice. Another question we had was, let's see, if I want to switch to the PDF Tron solution, do I have to purchase new licenses? And so definitely you would need new license keys when switching to the PDF Tron solution if you were to choose that route. So you would need to get in touch with our sales team and licensing team and work out obtaining new license keys from them. And then we had another question of, when will your active PDF doc converter library support .NET Core?
Right. So yeah, I see that too. Yeah, again, we're not right now making any immediate changes to port over. But if you're migrating your applications, right, to .NET Core or .NET 5, all .NET assemblies will still work within your application. Okay. Again, if you have any issues there, definitely reach out to our support team and we'll look at it for you.
Okay. Okay, just looking at some of the other questions that we have posted here. Someone was asking, performance has been an issue using Toolkit for very large PDFs for merging and form-filling forms with 10K pages. And so, there was some question about whether the performance improvements are going to be significant in those cases or not.
Yeah, I think, like I said, I mentioned in my talk that we are going to be leveraging PDF Tron's core SDK, right? And we have seen improvements already. That's going to be the biggest improvement. So we haven't really tested those large documents yet. We're still going through the QA process now, but we'll take a look at that and we'll let you guys know. But I think, yeah, as I said, we were seeing performance improvements across the board at this time.
Someone was asking, they were saying some competing SDK suppliers make it impossible to create executables unless mandatory yearly support is renewed. And they were curious whether that's the case with our solution as well. So I'm not sure about making it impossible, but with our toolkit, I should say that when you're trying out our toolkit, you can explore all the features that are within the SDK. So we have a trial mode that lets you really explore all of the APIs and try them out prior to licensing. So that's sort of a big advantage when exploring our solution. In terms of not being able to create executables unless support is renewed, that's more something that would need to be sort of worked out a bit with our licensing team. But you can get in touch with PDFtron sales team from our site, pdftron.com, and there's a button in the upper right for getting directly in touch with us. So another question, what are some scenarios where active PDF customers may want to add on PDFtron product licenses?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is the fabulous web viewer that PDFtron has. So you're delivering your end user with the PDFs or with any document. That's a tremendous add-on to the automation that Active PDF provides.
Yeah, I would definitely have to agree with that. Yeah, really sort of expanding out platforms is a great reason to start to explore some of the PDFtron technology and how it complements Active PDF.
Yep.
And then a final question, if usage is more like more PDF need to be generated, then how will that affect the cost? If having everything on its own server might be better if more processing needs to be done. And I think that's a great question. Really, what we found is that what helps for reducing costs overall is just having different options available. Having the possibility of processing on the server side, especially when low latency operations or high throughput operations dealing with large sets of documents need to happen, then a native toolkit running in a dedicated server environment can sometimes make a lot of sense. But the advantage of client-side processing comes up in scenarios where it makes a lot of sense to parallelize that operation amongst all the different users. And so some of that might need to be kind of a trade-off that's evaluated on a solution-by-solution basis. But if you get in contact with us, if you're running into issues regarding throughput or the optimal way of processing some sort of operation, then please feel free to get in touch with us, and we're happy to consult and point you in the right direction of our APIs and toolkits to see which one is going to be the least overhead and the least cost. And then another question, will the PDF viewer be thinner when presenting PDFs? We have some large PDFs, and sometimes this presents difficulties with low bandwidth connections and performance. Could the viewer be a solution in these kinds of scenarios? And PDFtron's web viewer absolutely can be a solution in those sorts of scenarios. We support documents in the tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of pages, and PDF sizes up to gigabytes. We actually have some of that demonstrable at our website. There's a live demo you can go to there and try out some of these large documents, or upload your own and see some of the performance that we're able to get despite this being within a browser. And we're able to still bring up a lot of that same performance even in sort of low bandwidth connections because we are able to cache data on the client side as well. So that way we can bring down the document into the browser's cache and read the bytes directly from there. And we also have some server-side components that can help make things faster inside of the client-side browser, especially if we're talking about underpowered browsers or older browsers like Internet Explorer. Okay, so that looks like the end of the questions from this round. So this might be a good time to wrap things up. So thanks so much, everyone, for showing up here today. I hope this was an informative presentation and one that will get you interested in potentially trying out some of the additional offerings from the Active PDF Tron family. And thanks so much to Mike and Tim for their expertise here. Really appreciate lending some of their experience into this conversation. And thanks so much, and have a great day, everyone.
All right, thanks, Aaron. Take care, everybody.
Take care. Bye.